You may have noticed that nowadays in the Mercedes lineup there are a lot of AMG models. You have the 35, the 43, the 45, the 53, the 55, the 63, and some of them are S models and some of them are SE models. In such a sport-saturated market, the question I want to ask is whether if Mercedes has lost some of its identity to AMG and whether if you can still get an elevated experience from a non-AMG sports car. This is the 2025 Mercedes CLE 450 Cabriolet. Let's check it out. The CLE 450 Cabriolet has a starting MSRP of 85,000 Canadian dollars, but this one being configured with optional paint, optional rims, optional trims, and a couple different packages, it comes to about 95,000 Canadian dollars before deliveries and before taxes. For context, if you want to compare, the base CLE 300 has a starting price of just over 72,000 Canadian dollars and the CLE 53 Cabriolet has a starting price of just under 94 grand. To give you guys a bit of background, let's do some backtracking. Now, before the CLE existed, there were the E-Class Coupe and the C-Class Coupe and their subsequent Cabriolet version. But a few years ago, Mercedes decided to merge the two models and create this CLE. The CLE look and feels a little bit more like a C-Class, but in terms of dimension, it's actually ever so slightly longer than that two-door E-Class, at least on the outside. The inside is a little bit smaller, so it's kind of an in-betweener, and that's exactly how you can view this CLE. A love child between the two-door E-Class and the two-door C-Class, but taking cues from both of them. Now, I mentioned that this feels more like a C-Class. For instance, the interior dash design is pretty much a copy and paste from the latest C-Class. But there's one thing that the CLE is far superior to the current generation C-Class, and that's the availability of a 6-cylinder engine. Under the hood is the Mercedes M256 inline-six turbocharged engine with 48-volt mild hybrid. This engine is very similar to what you find in the 53, but it doesn't get the electric supercharger and has a smaller turbocharger. So instead of making 443 horsepower, this produces 375 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. All CLE in Canada comes standard with 4MATIC all-wheel drive, and this engine is paired to the 9G-tronic 9-speed automatic transmission. In terms of looks, I think on most angles, Mercedes has knocked it out the park with this Cabriolet. The front end looks pretty aggressive still with the slim headlights and the bulges on the hood, but at the same time, the side profile retains a very much timeless and classy B-pillarless look. I've never been a huge fan of that little swoop at the end of the side windows on the coupe version, so this looks much better. The 450 comes standard with 19-inch rims, but these are the optional 20s. Up front, these are 245 wide Continental tires with 4 piston brakes and crosser rotors, plus you get a double wishbone suspension setup. In the back, it's a 275 wide tire setup with single piston floating caliper as well as a multi-link suspension setup. If you want adaptive dampers, you have to step up to the 53. Now, this tester also gets the night package, which blacks out certain parts of the car to make it look more stealthy, but unfortunately they somehow missed the most obvious chrome section around the car, which is the area that surrounds the entire soft top. Speaking of soft top, this opens and closes in about 20 seconds. You can do it outside of the car using the key fob, and the best part about it is the fact that you can open or close it while driving at up to 60 kilometers an hour, which is for the most part city driving speed limit. There we go. Over to the rear, this is probably the only angle that I don't love about this car. I think the profile just looks a little too rounded. I think I would probably prefer something that's a little less bubbly. This also has quote-unquote light bar taillights, but actually these are completely fake because the middle section doesn't light up or doesn't do anything. It's completely useless. There's also one other thing that I don't like about this rear end, and it's down here. The exhaust pipes or the exhaust tips are now completely fake. It's just a piece of plastic. It doesn't go through. There's no hole. The real exhaust tips are behind the bumper, pointing downwards. As expected with convertibles, the trunk space is a little smaller compared to their coupe counterparts, but on the CLE it's actually not bad at all because there's a motorized flap that allows you to raise it and opens up more space for you to store stuff. The end result is that this only gets 35 liters less space compared to the coupe version at 385 liters. When you have the roof open, however, that number's dropped to 295 liters, which is a different story. Now, if you want to maximize cargo space, you can also fold down a part of the rear seats to make a pass-through, which means that if you do some organizing, you can fit quite a bit of stuff back here. Now for the interior, as a demonstration, let me get into the back seat. Honestly, it's not too bad. With the roof closed at 5'9", headroom is tight. I do hit the ceiling if I sit straight, but there's like 4, 5, 6 inches of leg room in front of me actually. So if I slide forward a little bit sitting behind myself, I can have a decently comfortable seating position. Obviously with the top open, that would be a much better experience, but there you go. In terms of the interior, this is optioned with the macchiato beige article interior, which is what Mercedes call their artificial leather. If you don't want leather, you can also get real leather, as well as a couple other different color options. But the article material feels nice and has proven to be very durable, so I'm pretty happy with this material actually. Up front, first of all, when you close the door, you get handed your seat belts, which is very, very nice. And then you have your standard Mercedes treatment. 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster and an 11.9-inch vertical infotainment screen. What's different about this is because it's a cabriolet, it actually has a button to tilt the screen so it doesn't reflect the sunlight at odd hours of the day. Now, the software is great. System works fine. I have no problem navigating through the screen. It has support for Apple CarPlay, Android Auto wirelessly, but I'm still not a fan of the steering wheel touchpad. It's just not very accurate and it's still kind of a pain to use. The steering wheel is also heated, but for some reason there's no physical button or even on-screen button to control it independently. It's always tagged to the seat heating. The only other way you can adjust it or turn it on and off is using voice control. As for the seats themselves, they do feel very comfortable. They're memory, they're heated, they're ventilated, they have massage functions, you can adjust the side bolsters, you can adjust the leg extensions, all that good stuff. This also has the Airscarf system, which blows warm air out the back to your neck and your ears, so even on chillier days like today, you can enjoy the car roof down. This car also has a head-up display, has ambient lighting, as well as a Burmester sound system. But by far, my favorite part about this interior is this wood trim with the flowing lines. It just really gives you that luxury yacht vibes, and I love it. It's fantastic. We've just entered November, so it's only about 10 degrees outside, but nonetheless, we have to put the roof down because the experience is just so good. Mercedes has always made excellent convertibles, and this is no exception. You've got a motorized wind deflector that raises from the A-pillar as well as behind the rear seats, so even at highway speeds, wind noise is very, very manageable. You also have the Airscarf system, which makes your ears and neck very, very warm, so that's also excellent, especially on a day like this. When your roof is closed, there is effectively no wind noise, but you do hear engine sounds and truck sounds from surrounding vehicles. The only thing I can think of to complain about is why we have such long winters here in Canada and why I can't enjoy this car top-down more often. Because the refinement with this top-down experience is, in my opinion, unrivaled in the sub 100 grand category. The other thing where I think it's peak refinement is this engine. This inline-six is buttery smooth. Not only is it powerful, it's also very efficient. Despite not being the AMG model, it still does 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in about 4.5 seconds, which, let's be honest, is plenty quick. You do notice a little bit of drop off in the top end of the RPM range, but overall the power band is very linear with minimal turbo lag, which also means that accelerations feel very effortless. Dropping into sport mode, fantastic. As for the engine soundtrack, there's now this thing called progressive sport sound that is on by default. Now, typically, I don't really mind synthetic engine sounds, but for some reason, Mercedes has decided to put in V8 rumble sounds for this inline-six, so not only does it sound weird, it's just not fitting. Luckily, this is a setting you can turn off, and once you do turn it off, the engine sounds will be restored to the familiar, high-pitched, beautiful inline-six tone. This 9-speed gearbox, although isn't the AMG version and it doesn't shift as quick as that version, it actually feels smoother. Personally, I found myself regularly using eco mode on relaxing drives because it allows for engine off coasting. And since the 48 volt mild hybrid system is so well engineered, the delay it takes to restart the engine is minimally intrusive in my opinion. From my observations, with the roof closed, I was able to average about 10 liters per 100 kilometers in the city and a little over 6 liters per 100 kilometers on the highway, which, considering the size of this engine and the power it makes, is really good. In terms of safety tech, blind spot warning, emergency braking, parking assist, and a few other come standard. This tester is equipped with the optional 360 camera, but not the driver assistance package. That package includes things like emergency braking at intersections, active blind spot assist, evasive steering, adaptive cruise control, lane centering, lane change assist, and so on. Based on my experience with Mercedes that has that option equipped, it works really well, and to me that package is kind of a must-have. As far as reasons to pick this over the 53, obviously this is a little cheaper, and subjectively I think this looks a little classier without the aggressive wide-body kit. But there's one thing that's objectively better with this 450, and that's the ride quality. Despite not having adaptive dampers, the suspension tuning on this is excellent. There's still some of that notorious wheel noise coming through when going over bumps, but overall, this car rides really well and is very comfortable to cruise in. Ultimately, I think this 450 is made for someone who doesn't necessarily want to chase for the horsepower and chase for 0 to 60 times, but still want the prestige and effortlessness from an inline-six. This car is so pleasant and so relaxing to drive, plus you get a top-tier, top-down experience. In my opinion, this does have its charm over the 53, and for the intended purpose of it being a grand touring convertible, this CLE 450 Cabriolet does an exceptional job. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about the CLE 450. Would you go straight to a CLE 53, or would you go down to the CLE 300? We'll see you in the next one.